of Stevens Point Bicycle and Pedestrian Street Safety Commission, recorded August 20th, 2020.
Okay, we're at 3:03. We're going to call this meeting to order to stay on schedule here. All right, first we'll start with roll call. Commissioner O'Meara.
Here.
Commissioner Finn. Commissioner Finn. Commissioner Brown.
Here.
Commissioner Fehrenbach.
Here.
Commissioner Leek.
Now I'm here and hearing things.
All right, great. And Commissioner Rourke, present. Okay, we have everyone except for Commissioner Finn, present. Okay. All right, jumping to the first agenda item. Adam, are you able to pull that up, or did you give control to me for sharing?
I can pull it up. Hold on one second.
Sure, that'd be great. While we're waiting there, the agenda item 3 is persons who wish to address the committee for up to 3 minutes on a non-agenda item.
I will have one comment, please.
Go ahead, Commissioner O'Meara.
I would like us to put on a future agenda the Green Circle Trail intersection with the east end of the Clark Street Bridge. I think we should look upon how that's routed, and perhaps we would maybe find some alternate ways to do that, because right now it's a difficult area to negotiate.
Okay, thank you. Any other commissioners with non-agenda items? I will mention one on the record during the meeting that was sort of mentioned earlier, not too long ago. The typical bicycle pedestrian count for the city occurs in September, roughly in the middle of the month. And, you know, due to the current situation with the pandemic and all, it is not an easy situation to figure out. So currently we're trying to determine if we're going to do this, as well as who the coordinator is going to be. So I am working with city staff to determine this and to see if we're going to go forward.
Chairman Rourke?
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner O'Meara.
On that a matter, because this year is an anomaly, I don't think it would be unreasonable to not do the count, because the count will have little value except on predicting what happens in years when you're in a pandemic.
Gotcha. Thank you. Any other commissioners with a comment or non-agenda item? Anyone from the audience that is not part of the commission with a non-agenda item?
Commissioner Rourke?
Yes, who's this?
It's Kathy.
Okay,
Brown.
Commissioner Brown, go ahead.
I was just going to comment that to back up what Mike O'Meara had said, as the school's opening, it's going to be half the traffic or less, because it's Monday, Tuesday, they're A through L, and then Thursday, Friday, the rest of the alphabet. So it really will not be the traffic that you normally would have. Walking, biking, driving is not going to be present.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else with a non-agenda item? Okay, we will move on to item number 4. And Adam, do you have control or is this me?
Oh, there we go. I would say we can both share it if there's anything we would want to discuss. So I can hand it off to you if there's any, pertinent information you want to ask or share to start off.
Okay, sorry. The screen I'm seeing right now, is that your shared screen?
Yeah, which side are you showing, or which side can you see right now? Can you see the full screen as a slideshow or just the?
Yeah, it's the full screen,
like
just the title page, basically.
Okay, perfect. Let me just pull it up. There we
So
go.
number 4, item number 4, please. All right, so to review the report and approve the report of the July 9th, 2020 VPSSC meeting.
Move to approve.
Oh, Commissioner
O'Meara
Rourke,
moved.
I did notice, this is Commissioner Finn, I did notice a small error on number 7 under staff update. It still says update on assessing
Val?
bicycle parking, seating, and ADA compliance inventory for high demand traffic stops, and it should be transit stops. So just a small, I don't know if that's a correction that should be made or can be made, but.
Yeah, Adam, I think that can be an easy fix, correct?
Yep, yeah, that's something that we can amend and fix.
Make yourself feel
Okay.
better.
Is there, sorry, is there a second on this motion?
I'll second and also add an edit. I believe I was credited with some comment during the persons wishing to address the committee about the extension of the green circle, the connectors. I think that might have, now that Mike mentioned it, it might have been Mike who said that at the previous meeting.
Okay. So another friendly amendment.
Friendly amendment, yes.
Any other edits or discussion on the minutes for July 9th? Okay. With the motion and the friendly amendments that have been mentioned in the recording here, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposition? Abstentions, no. Okay, motion carries. Item number 5. Assessment of the walking rolling audit of the Plan 2021 street reconstructions. Okay, so most people here, it looks like, had joined us. If not everybody, most people had joined us for this walking rolling audit. This was this year's audit for the 2021 reconstructions plan of 5th Avenue from Grant east to 1st Street, and then south along 1st Street to Portage, and then headed east on Portage all the way to Smith Street, and then we walked and rolled south to Center Point Drive. And you can actually see the map is in the agenda, and it's right there on your screen. Perfect. But you can actually see the route in my screen where we walked. Sort of. It's kind of small. Apologize. So we did a general assessment, and the purpose really was to look at the street design for those specific corridors. We couldn't cover everything in the walk audit toolkit. We specifically use the AARP walk audit toolkit, but it is a more generally prescribed toolkit, and a lot of it doesn't apply to this specific situation when we're looking at reconstructing the entire right-of-way for each of these sections. So things that we did look at, generally speaking, We looked at the kind of the street width, curb to curb generally, where there were parking lanes, how traffic was traveling, different users of the street, whether people were walking, rolling, using bicycles, wheelchair, etc. Things like curb cuts, just to get a sense of how they could be improved with the reconstruction. ADA compliance, kind of the size of intersections and how difficult they might be to cross, as well as the speed of traveling vehicles. There were a number of good questions brought up in discussion. But for this purpose of our meeting, it's really to get a general assessment. And we will use the toolkit for that. In the toolkit itself, if anybody actually has that, there was a link provided in the agenda. I don't know if you can pull that up, Adam, as a side, just so people are aware where they can find the link if they want to look at that.
Sure, and I know the link was included. Yeah, so as you mentioned, it was included in the memo for the walking rolling audit, and it was included as an attachment to of an email to all the commissioners on Monday as well. But I can pull up the document for that too.
Okay. Yeah, it might be good just to pull that up so we're looking at that while we're going here. Sure. It's the toolkit itself, not the leader's guide. And it's page 13 we're looking at. So as Adam is pulling that up, we're going to do kind of a basic assessment of the different categories of what we experienced during the walking rolling audit, looking at crossing streets and intersections, the sidewalks we covered, there it is, the driver behavior we might have experienced, safety, how safe we felt using the street, as well as comfort and appeal. So this again is a general rating. We'll go through each of these. Obviously, if discussion or questions come up, that is totally cool. Please feel free to ask or add some more input. So we'll start right away with the first one, and that's crossing streets and intersections. So as we crossed streets, and we did mostly at intersections, for those that attended the walking rolling audit, and we're talking about the whole stretch that we walked and rolled. What would you say a rating could be for this? And before we kind of do a consensus, if you will, here's some ideas that are part of the audit. So in crossing streets and intersections, there's a number of things to consider. Did the location need a traffic signal, or in our case, mostly a crosswalk? Was there one missing? Did it actually need it? Is the crosswalk there, or is it poorly marked? Do people need to steer far out of their way to find a safe place to cross the street? Is the road or street too wide to safely cross? Were there things in the way that blocked the view of crossing? So like parked cars or utility poles, things like that. And of course, there's a whole slew of other conditions you can potentially think of or experience. So going with that, for those that attended the walk rolling audit, would anyone want to go first on which you think? Or we could do a show of hands, which I mean, you'd have to do maybe a video if that's okay. Show of hands
I could
if you
comment.
think it's excellent. I can see some of you. Let's see. Okay. And is Janet, is she on now?
Yes, I am.
All right. Oh, great. Okay. So Janet's present. Okay. Were there any show of hands of excellent rating for crossing streets and intersections? Okay, seeing none, were there anyone that think the crossing streets and intersections was a good rating? Okay, I am not seeing anybody, am I? Okay, okay, and then I guess let's look at fair. Anybody who attended the walking rolling audit think it's a fair? 1, 2, okay. I gotta click through here, sorry. 3, 4, and I will go with a 5. I think that was all of us that attended, right? Okay. And then anybody, oh, that's everybody, okay. So, and again, we're going with, I don't know, Adam, what do you think? Is it better to just get the commissioner's feedback or everyone's feedback on that attended? Because we could do everybody.
I would say we can focus on the commissioners, and if there's any comments or questions that staff would have or commissioners would have to staff, we're more than welcome to answer such questions as well.
Okay, that sounds great. Okay, so that was all of us. So looking at sidewalks, the next step. So we're probably looking less at the cracks and the divots and the weeds and grass. But there's certain things that could be potential in looking at the conditions as well as design. For example, the sidewalk isn't wide enough for 2 people to walk by each other. I think we kind of saw that with the wheelchair that we used. Certain sections were basically impossible for 2 wheelchairs to get next to each other, as well as someone walking across the wheelchair. That would be pretty difficult. We looked at terraces, right? Was there enough buffer between the traffic and the sidewalk, or the curb and the sidewalk? How about sidewalk interruptions like driveways? Obviously, you can't get around that most of the time. However, are there certain grade changes that can be made with a reconstruction? Curb cuts, are they all ADA compliant? And then obviously when a reconstruction, that would be the case. It has to be the case where they're all ADA compliant. As well as blockage. So sidewalks getting blocked by poles, signs, shrubs, stuff like that. So with reconstructing, you would hope that almost all of those problems and concerns would be taken care of. So those are just a few types of conditions and variables to think about when kind of giving your rating. All right, so with the commissioners who attended the walking rolling audit, for sidewalks, would you give it a rating of excellent? Anyone would give it a rating of excellent? I just got to click through here. Okay. No excited raised hands there. Okay. How about rating of good? There'd be a rating of good. No rating of good. Okay. And then how about a rating of fair? 1, 2. Okay, we got 2 with fair. And then a rating of poor. Myself on this page. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Just want to make sure the numbers checked out. All right, so 2 for fair and 3 for poor. Okay. And then driver behavior, and this is kind of more, might have been in the back of our minds as we were walking along or rolling. Possible things to think about were drivers' speed. Did it appear that they were speeding? Did drivers look and obey stop signs, and especially when we were at intersections? And then do they actually stop behind the crosswalk or the stop sign when it's appropriate. And there's a number of other things you can look at too. We had specific experiences at, like, for example, the intersection at First and Portage, as well as Second and Portage, with kind of a higher rate of speeds with vehicles. And of course, I don't want to add bias here, but there's a number of other things you can look at too. All right, driver behavior. What rating would we give that? So anyone give it an excellent? Okay, there's 0 there. How about a rating of good? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we got 4. Okay, and I think I am the only one that gives it a rating of fair. Okay. Okay, we'll move on to safety. So safety along the stretches that we walked and rolled. A number of things to look at would be car speeds again. Some of that does relate to the actual design of the street corridor, as well as how close the sidewalk is to the curb. Drivers being distracted. Is the signage appropriate, or is it confusing? Those are just 3 things I circled in the audit. And obviously there's other variables you can look at, and you might have experienced something else. Okay, so looking at safety, how would we rate that as a commission? So those that attended the walking rolling audit, would you rate it as excellent? Click through here. Okay, no excellent. Anybody rated as good? Got 1 good. Okay. And then how about rating it as fair? 1, 2. Oh, Tom was on the fence. 2, 3. Okay. Okay, and I'd be the last one for poor. Okay. Comfort and appeal. All right. Now, everyone's experiencing comfort and appeal is definitely different when using the corridor, especially when people have different mobility experiences along a sidewalk or a street. So things like shade trees, can be a very important element. Obviously, we had talked about that during the audit, where there are places where there was no terrace, basically the strip between the sidewalk and the curb of the street. Were there places where there could be a bench or 2 laid out in a higher, traffic, higher pedestrian corridor? Landscaping, I don't know, did we come across any bus stops? I think we could see one from one intersection, but correct me if I'm wrong, Adam or Scott. Was there a bus stop, or Ryan? I don't think we came across one on this.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I don't recall seeing one either.
Okay. So
sorry, Trevor, I didn't mean to unmute you. I was trying to unmute myself, and I.
That's all right. I saw that pop up. I'm like, all right, okay. I didn't know it was offensive. It's all good.
I think we saw a woman waiting for a bus a block down from when we were at St. Pete's school.
Oh, on 4th? Is that 4th Avenue?
Well, it might have been a block down from that.
Okay, gotcha.
She was across from North Point.
Yeah.
On 2nd Street, yeah.
Oh, on 2nd Street. Okay, so it wasn't on this corridor specifically, correct?
No.
Okay. All right. So not as much consideration. I know it's first is part of the route, the bus route, but not a stop itself. And there's a number of other considerations. Obviously, it was hard to look at adequate lighting because we were in daylight. But anyway, yeah, we're looking at comfort and appeal of our experience today. And for those commissioners who attended, would you rate this as excellent? Looking through here. Okay. Anyone rated as good? Okay. Anyone rated as fair? We got 2 as fair. Okay. And then rating as poor. That would be 3 of us. Okay. All right. So do quick totals here.
Tough crowd.
Yeah, tough crowd. Critics. A lot of critics.
Yeah. Well, that's the reason you're rebuilding the road.
Right. That's part of it. And then, of course, we learned from Director Badoon, there's a lot of utility work that will be happening underneath as well. All right, just doing some quick math here for 7. Okay, so we have totals for all these corridors. And again, this is a general assessment based on our experience today with the walking rolling audit for the 2021 planned reconstructions of streets, specifically Smith between Grant and First Street, headed south on First Street all the way to Portage, and then headed east on Portage all the way to Smith, and then turning right, headed south on Smith all the way to Center Point Drive. And that was our route today. So the totals are 0 for excellent. Woo, tough crowd is right. 5 for good, 13 for fair, and then 7 for poor. Okay. So reading this, your overall rating will be more than just your check mark total. Think about your observations as a whole. For some areas, much better or worse than others. For example, the sidewalks might be good for walking, but intersections might be poor for crossing the street. So, overall rating of the entire walk audit area. So this would be us coming to, I think, a majority out of the 5 who attended was an excellent, good, fair, or poor. Or we could just use the fact that fair won. You want to just do that for speed? Sounds good. All right, so fair wins. All right, so out of our experience today, it was a fair set of corridors. Okay. So we had a number of additional comments and experiences while we were there in discussion. We're not really going to go through those as much unless people do want to bring specific concerns or questions up. Go
Can I
ahead,
just say
Commissioner.
that I think the biggest issue for me was the inconsistency of sidewalk width and terrace or boulevard availability or lack thereof. And that combined with the street being very wide in places, but I was very encouraged to see that this year's new construction has made the streets narrower, which would make crossing, especially in a wheelchair, much more manageable if you narrow the street.
Right. Good point. You said the inconsistent, sorry, just to clarify, inconsistency of sidewalk width, terrace, and width, street width? Or was there was another inconsistency?
The street
sorry.
width wasn't inconsistent. It was just too wide. Consistent.
Too wide,
It was
right.
inconsistent with sidewalk width and terrace or lack thereof.
Okay, thanks. Was there someone else coming up off mute?
Yeah, it was Carolyn from Milk. I'm sorry I wasn't able to be there.
That's okay, Carolyn.
But what are you going to do with the findings? Are they going to be taken into account during the reconstruction, or what is going to happen from here? Like, we know what's wrong, but we want to make it right. So how are we going to go about doing that?
Right, I know Director Badoon can speak to this as well, but generally speaking, the Public Works Department will bring their design plans to our commission, and we'll use these findings as well as the bicycle pedestrian countywide plan, any recommendations in there, as well as the new TAP grant that just is going in right now. So a number of variables will be considered for recommendations on the street design. So I don't know, Scott, if you wanted to, is Scott on? Sorry, just checking.
I am on. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay,
Thanks.
good. Last time I used my phone, it didn't seem to want to work. So glad it's working. But yeah, the idea you hear with using the information is that, we're, as designers, of course, we always think we have an idea of doing, we always want to try to, meet people's expectations. And of course, the best way to do that is ask people, what are your expectations? What are the concerns? So, it's really just a matter of ensuring us that we're taking the correct path, in design to do that. And, from what I hear, I think we are, but, because sometimes you don't know what you're going to get. The, neighborhood slightly changes, and what you maybe did last year, someone sees a difference and they point that out to you to say, no, we separate this from something else. And this is what, so we're just making sure, one, we're not just repeating ourselves for the sake of repeating ourselves because it worked in the past, to do that. And just to make sure that, we're, and so everyone else realizes too, that at the city that we are listening, and we don't just do these things blindly. So, that's a big part from our perspective on what, have to say, just like when we have public informational meetings and whatnot, just to make sure that, people are aware as much as that we're getting feedback from the public.
If I might say also,
yes, go ahead.
That as members of the Bike and Ped Commission, I think we all felt that it was really nice to be walking that route with staff, and we learned more about what they consider when they're reconstructing a road, and that can inform us then when, in the future, or things that we as a Bike and Ped Commission members can then look for or maybe notice and then bring back also to staff. So, I think just walking that route with them really gave us a lot of good information as to what the engineers consider when they're reconstructing a street.
Thank you, Commissioner Finn. To piggyback on that point, as well as what Director Badoon said, case in point is the intersection of Smith and Center Point. There were a number of things that we had learned right there. The actual physical reconstruction stops before the intersection, before you get to the intersection of Center Point and Smith. However, there's a design there called a slip. And for those that didn't experience that today or don't remember what that intersection looks like, basically it's just a faster right turn for cars or vehicles onto what used to be Highway 10. As we kind of experienced there, even though it is a snapshot in time, the volume of traffic as well as the need didn't seem to exist. And so, discussing that there was really, kind of a learning experience, as well as one of the residents spoke up and said that the pedestrian island, which helps the slip, but ends up getting filled up with snow and is never, he said, and I'm not quoting him, but he said it's always filled up with ice chunks and snow, so you can't use it. So you think it's going to work, but we got 5 months or so where it's not. So yeah, case in point there. Other commissioners on any specific comments or questions or concerns? And then anyone else in the audience or Carolyn there, did you have other questions for the commissioner staff?
No.
And I'm sorry, Carolyn, if you could have your state your name and your address, your residential address for the record, please.
Oh, it's Carolyn Peterson, Karalyn Peterson, and it's 5540 Glenwood Avenue, Stevens Point.
Thanks. Did you have anything else, Carolyn, or?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the audience or commission? Okay, seeing none, thank you again for everyone that participated, and if you couldn't, that's all right. it was a good experience, and we'll look forward to, doing some sort of walking, rolling audit in the future, whether it's the 2022 reconstruction or something else if there's a specific need. All right, we'll move on to the next agenda item, and that's the staff updates.
Thank you.
Adam, do you have that?
Yep, I am pulling that up right now.
Thank you.
All right, hopefully you all can see it now.
Yes.
Perfect. Then I'll actually have Director Badoon start and talk about the TAP grant update and then the Business 51 stakeholders meetings.
Thank you, Adam. I hope that it's otherwise okay. I'd asked Adam to, but I forgot to look at the agenda. I see the agenda is a slightly different that was put out to the public to what the order we have here. Is that acceptable? We go in the order they're listed on the screen at the moment?
Yeah, I think so, because it's all one agenda item as a staff update. Does that sound okay, Adam?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, as long as no one has any objections. So yeah, TAP grant, hopefully everyone has had an opportunity to see that. You'll see the Century fence, equipment and their staff out there doing things. We're well underway. I can't even tell you exactly how many thousand feet of line they've put down, but it's been quite a bit, and they continue to work diligently to get things put into place. As to be expected when we're trying to retrofit, we're out there making field adjustments as we go along, because we get some of the the measurements that were otherwise taken, and we assume that things are kind of held constant. Well, it's all civil engineering and construction, and quite honestly, it's difficult to do that. So working within the variations of the curb to curb and whatnot that vary from block to block and whatnot to make appropriate adjustments there. But things are otherwise going well. Century's moving quickly. They're very responsive to things. They like to lay things out, have us confirm what they're doing before they proceed it. So we're hopefully not redoing any of the work, although there may be a few things that we'll probably have to touch up on, as we've been talking with the DOT as well on some of the things. And that just comes to be that sometimes what you look and see on paper, and when you get out into the there and see it in practice, sometimes you just see things a little bit differently and realize that maybe a change or adjustment is in order. So, but generally speaking, things are going very well with that project, and we should be wrapped up within the next few weeks.
Okay.
Has any specific questions regarding that?
Thank you, Scott. Quick question on education. I'm finding this to be kind of a good point in time to not only empower the commission, but also just first ask, does the Public Works Department, or I guess a question for Adam or Ryan, does community development have any educational plan for these new facilities? And I will also add, before, if you want to answer after, we are definitely into that. So our commission should be part of that. We'd like to help with the educational push in whatever format you think is best. But yeah, is there a plan currently for educating the public? And more specifically, in terms of how to use them, the different types of facilities, because some people haven't seen these ever, or maybe they saw them in a manual when they took the test 50 years ago. And it's just, this is reality. Change is not easy. So is there a plan in place? And if not, should we develop one?
This is Scott again, and we do plan on getting something out. Exactly what that will otherwise be has yet to be determined. We definitely like people's ideas. I think this is one of the areas where, just being honest, I think I've spent so much time and staff here in the engineering division has spent so much time doing it. To us, it feels so natural. I honestly do feel disconnected from what other people out there that are experiencing it, are thinking when they get there. And I would love to hear back from people to say, what's going on, and get their perspectives on it, so we could tailor what it is we need to do. I could direct people to certain things in it, but it would be actually nice to hear from some people on some ideas, observations, whatever it is, to help get there. I guess, like I said, simply just because after spending, gosh, it's probably been through design, whatever, a year and a half through all that process. It just seems like it's almost, in my mind, it seems like it's existed for a long time,
Right.
there, and the understanding behind why it was put down and how it's supposed to function. So, but we definitely are planning to get some things together. I think to make it most beneficial, though, I would love to hear, the ideas from the commission, or, if you have ideas to put out there yourself. But yeah, we definitely plan on getting some things together, but the format of which, like I said, we're still trying to sort through.
I'd be happy to give you a little feedback. Well, my first point would be, it's important that bicyclists get out there and use the facilities to help model what should be going on. In the past, I've been a bit of a critic of the value of SHARE, the shared lane marking arrows. But the ones that are on Water Street now, I often use Water Street to get out of town to as the least traffic way to get to the nicer outside roads. And I have been very pleased with traffic responding. And I'm riding right down the Sherrill, as you're supposed to, and cars are behind me. They're polite. They stay there until there's a point where I can get over, and that part has been very good, and it does very much inform the car traffic that I'm riding where I'm supposed to be. So that part's been good. I have a little concern. I think you're going to get a little bit of pushback on Jefferson, because you have some Sherrills there, and then you have some white lines. Now, I think my understanding is that is a marking simply for the urban shoulder. It's not a bike lane, because there is parking allowed on most of those stretches where the white line is. And that may be confusing to people to see cars parked over. If they assume it's a bike lane, they would think, well, you can't park there, but it is legitimate parking. So maybe some education will need to happen as far as that goes. Those are my two specific comments. But I was out of town for a week, and I was thrilled when I got back and saw all this. Like, it's here. It's finally here.
It's happening.
I have some feedback
Go
also
ahead.
on
Yes.
that, how to educate and inform the public. On Michigan Avenue, there's the center lane is now looks like a lane that you can rest in to turn into driveways. That's a big change. And with bike lanes on the side, and then there's an actual yellow that then turns into a turn lane off of Michigan. I think that even just putting on the Stevens Point, the Facebook page, making, putting some kind of explanation or including drawings or something of what those are, or even a video. There's probably stock videos of that, because some are a little different and some are we haven't seen on the roads that people drive on constantly. Also, in both, in the newspapers, in the Stevens Point Journal, or in the Portage County Gazette too, maybe just having something in there that just explains what some of those new to a lot of people paintings, what they indicate or how to navigate them.
Good points. Yeah. To piggyback on that, Janet, right in the Portage County Bike Ped Plan, there's a facilities section early on in the binder. So it almost might be really useful to have something like that on the city's bicycling page, just like the subset, you know, a link right to that. Obviously, if you link right to the plan, it's going to, I mean, it already is linked to the plan, but if you do that, people will get bogged down like, oh my gosh, this is such a, how do I find what I was looking for? So I think maybe I could work with John Quirk on that, just doing a subset, just to make sure they cover all the facility types. Like someone had a question of me the other day, and it was regarding parking, just like he had brought up on Jefferson. And it was a parking, is it always okay to park in a bike lane? And I kind of differentiate between a standard bike lane versus a shared lane with a parking lane. And because I did want to point out as well that part of this education will help once the signs go up. So the signage is not up yet. So once, and Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, will all the paint be down before signs go up? Is that correct?
Not necessarily, but they will be kind of completing at the same time. So like the last couple of weeks of painting, you know, the subcontractor, the signage will come in and start putting that up, and then they'll end about the same time.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And I'll add one more comment, and this goes as praise to both the writers of the TAP grant and to the city for carrying it out. But the two contraflow bike lanes are absolutely in the right spots on Franklin by the Y. Now you can get to the Y safely on a bicycle where you couldn't before. And the one on Reserve near campus is, again, absolutely a very logical and well laid out spot for a contraflow lane. And I've used them both now, and they're tremendous improvements to our streets. So thank you.
And just to make sure credit is due, that was by the designers and writers of the bike ped plan that recommended those two contraflow bike lanes. Just so you know. Any other questions or ideas on education for starters for the TAP grant? One thing I will put in there too, and it's not happening yet, but I'm going to be doing a impromptu video with the mayor and potentially my alder, Zarazua, Nakira Zarazua, and we're thinking about making it fully educational and riding those bicycle facilities. So we're hoping we can put this on the city website and you know, help add another format that people can access fairly easily, so that we cover as much ground as possible. Any other thoughts, questions about the TAP grant? Okay, thanks, Scott. I'm gonna keep going on to stakeholders. All right.
Yeah, update on the Business 51 stakeholders meeting. So last week, there were a total of 4 meetings with our stakeholders group, and just a little bit of background then, the stakeholders group is a small group of people who have agreed to participate with us. I think all told, we're somewhere in the 20s, maybe 30 people total, of a variety of backgrounds, from business owners to just, you know, residents both on and just off the corridor, those with special interests that might be like the university or schools, you know, like, you know, school transportation, the transit committee, you know, forestry, you know, a variety of city staff, just to get through and kind of flesh out some of the ideas and thoughts that people have before we go to the public involvement meetings and invite everybody in to give us comments. Because that's usually the time we don't want to hear things necessarily for the first time. We'd like to get, you know, kind of that little bit of thinking it like a survey. You know, we talk to a few people, find out what they're thinking, and then we can prepare for, you know, the larger group. So that's what the stakeholder is. And we met 4 times in different numbers of people to do that. There was a general session on Tuesday, which just kind of discussed some of the history and kind of what the intent of the stakeholders group was, and overall what the planning project, was for Business 51. And then on Thursday, we had 3 individual breakout sessions looking at kind of, logical areas where, different segments of Business 51. The first being on the south end, from the south city limits to Ped Street or the railroad tracks, that area there. The central segment being from, from Ped Street up to 4th Avenue, and then the north segment being from 4th Avenue to North Point Drive to the roundabout area there. And then each of those were kind of set up such that we were, trying to get more into the details of what it is, what currently exists, if anything, that we like, that we don't want to lose, be it aesthetics or whatever else, access control, anything like that, the way intersections are kind of laid out or controlled. And then, of course, more importantly, what do we want to see? What isn't working well? What do we need to correct? Those sorts of things, like, much like we did with the rolling audit today, terrace and, pedestrian crossings and those sorts of things, kind of overall road width. How do we make it safer for, users other than motor vehicles, and those sorts of things, and went through on each different segment, because each one has a slightly different feel to it, and the context is a little bit differently, to get those down. So at the moment now, AECom is going through all that and trying to put together some meeting minutes, and then trying to revise, where we started from, which is where we left off back in whatever it was before my time, 2013, I believe it was, and then trying to revise kind of the layouts on those to see, to present that forward with the public. So it went very well. We had a lot of good discussion on all 3 segments of it, and it was very positive. And anyone watching there or participated in it, I thank you for doing that. It was a wonderful experience. And if we can remain that civilized throughout this process, I'm going to have a smile on my face. So, yeah, so that's what it is. If anyone has any, particular questions about that, but that's it in a nutshell. And I forget exactly the schedule, but the public informational meeting, I think, is, it hasn't been set yet, but as you go through that, is going to be, and I just saw the schedule to it. I think it's scheduled for, I forget if it's September or October, but later yet this fall. We'll take that information we gathered last week and then prepare for the public informational meeting.
Thank you, Director. And just so the commission's aware, I am part of that stakeholders group. So if there's any questions or ideas or concerns, feel free to let me know. And it's been a good experience so far. So thank you again for having me on that stakeholders group, Scott.
Absolutely.
Any other questions or concerns or thoughts regarding Business 51 stakeholders? Okay, just going to click through quick. All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the next staff update.
Yes, so the next update is further discussion from what we discussed at the last BPSSC meeting. So folks who are attending the meeting now may recall last month when Commissioner Rourke mentioned a resident complaint about a resident in the city not being allowed access into a restaurant drive-through. So city staff have been tasked and was looking around at what options the city has in regulating how restaurants utilize their drive-through access windows. Now, after a discussion with the city attorney, he stated that there is not any legal standard that the city would have in regulating how restaurants operate and utilize their drive-through windows. So unfortunately, it looks like this is a case where the city wouldn't have any control over how to regulate restaurants operating their drive-through windows. So I just wanted to share a little bit of an update since this was a topic of discussion last month and it seemed to have a pretty good follow-up discussion afterwards. So I wanted to bring that to all the commissioners' attentions from just letting you guys know that staff have been working on that in the last few weeks.
Thank you, Adam.
Sure. I don't know if there's any other questions about this, and if not, I can move on to the next staff update. Okay. Seeing none, so the next staff update is an update on the bicycle-friendly community application. So as commissioners may recall, at last month's meeting, we informed you all that the application would have been due about mid-August, about the 12th or the 13th. And subsequently, since then, there's been two more major revisions to the application. The first one adding some changes to the bicycle programming questions, just more so to ask how has the COVID-19 pandemic impacted, you know, the amount of bicyclists who are utilizing the various types of bike lanes that the city has, and, you know, just generally, the League of American Bicyclists wants municipalities to state a sense of inclination as far as how has the pandemic influenced bicycle traffic, bicycle access, mobility, et cetera, over the last few months. So there's been a couple questions added on with that, and also some revisions to the enforcement section of the application in light of the recent actions that's been happening with police and civilians. So more so wanting the League of American Bicyclists to understand different enforcement strategies that each municipality is undertaking when they submit their application. So with that, the application window has been extended to the 1st of October. So it's staff's intention that by the next time we meet, that the application will be submitted, and hopefully we'll hear good news with regards to achieving the silver status.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions or thoughts on that item? Okay, seeing none.
All right, and the next update is in a similar fashion about the bicycle-friendly business application. So this application is similar to the bicycle-friendly community application in that a lot of the sections in the business application relates to more so enforcement in terms of, you know, a lot of the sections, a lot of the questions are fairly similar, but this is more geared to how local businesses in the community have educate, enforce, and overall try to encourage bicyclists, if it's their employees, to help bike into their workplace in terms of having access to, say, for example, bike racks. So staff has been working with Chairman Rourke about bringing on some information onto the commission's website as far as information, the application itself, and other resources that may be handy for businesses to apply for this application. And I would say that there are a boatload of different benefits for businesses applying for the status. You know, there's impacts as far as lower premiums for health insurance. There's impacts as far as having access to a different amount of grants for any future infrastructure work that may take place. So there's definitely a boatload of benefits that would occur for businesses if they choose to apply for this application. Now it's going to be staff's work over the next few weeks and months to bring on this information to businesses and to help encourage and be a resource for businesses who wish to apply. And I did include in the agenda packet as well some of the upcoming windows as far as the application itself. So there is actually an application window going on right now that closes, I believe, looks like October 7th. So a little over a month from now. And then there will also be a spring 2021 application that will start in October as well. So from the looks of it, there's going to be 365 days a year. There's always going to be at least an application window available for businesses who wish to apply. So just want to give commissioners an update as far as staff has been looking at this application and will be presenting additional information for businesses and overall on the website should they wish to apply for this application.
Thank you, Adam. Could I add something quick?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, just to add, this is actually, to remind the commission, if you haven't read this before, it's actually a recommendation directly from the Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan. So essentially empowering businesses to apply for this designation. It's not something like the city's applying for. This is basically our commission and or the city or the county empowering the businesses that reside within to apply for this designation. So one thing would be nice to consider, besides what we currently have, which is a link on the website, right on the bicycling page of the city website, it's already there. But also like physically or in person asking businesses as you're patronizing them, have you thought about this bicycle friendly business designation? So that's just one way that we can kind of empower some of these businesses to take the next step.
Trevor or Adam, is the bicycle friendly business affiliated with the bicycle benefits program?
It is not. The different program, but one obviously influences the other. So if, let's say, I think PABS and Top Hat Bar and what used to be Sugar Cube, those were the three bicycle benefits businesses in town here. Those are like, I think, and Adam, correct me if I'm wrong, but that might have even been in the community, bicycle friendly community application where it was one of the check boxes. Do your businesses have bicycle benefits?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
I know that never really caught on, and I just think that it's an opportunity that businesses are not capitalizing on. If they can get people with stickers on their helmets to come in and do business with them, it would be beneficial.
Right.
Also, just a little bit more about that I think a way of promoting it, if we actually, some of us actually go into a business, is it piggybacks off of Stevens Point being a bicycle friendly community. It's the same League of American, bicyclists. So it just piggybacks on that. Hey, we're a bicycle friendly community. We have silver status, which hopefully we'll get.
Right.
Would you want to be a bicycle friendly business that, and then those dovetail. So to make it clear to them that this is in direct connection with what the city has already done, what the city has already achieved.
Right, exactly. Thanks. Any other thoughts or questions for Adam on the bicycle friendly business application or empowerment? Okay.
All right, and then the second to last staff update relates to updating the city's bicycle parking ordinance. So as commissioners may recall, I believe it was back in 2017, 2018, the commission was looking at revamping the existing bicycle parking ordinance to include, essentially make the ordinance more comprehensive in nature, add different sections, and Trevor Chairman Rohr can discuss a little bit further as far as the scope of the discussions that took place back in 2017, 2018. But I wanted to give the commission an update as far as a timetable for when the bicycle parking ordinance will be updated. So this will be updated as of tentatively set right now. It will be updated prior to when the whole city's zoning code gets revamped, which as Director Karnowski talked about, believe at the last commission meeting, will take place is more of a long-term project, but it is staff's determination right now that we will be updating the bicycle parking ordinance prior to the zoning code being rewritten. So just wanted to give the commission an update as far as a timetable that staff will be looking at updating the existing bicycle parking ordinance, most likely in the winter time tentatively set as of now, and then we'll bring our recommendations to the commission for review, and then subsequently plan commission for review as well.
Thank you,
Sure.
Adam.
Sure, and if there's any other questions, I'd be happy to answer that.
Yeah, or if there's any other additional information that the newer commissioners need, feel free to let us know, or you can ask now. I will put in, also, we'll probably start this next month, I'm assuming, because we'll start with what was already drawn up, and that was what was recommended to staff to include in the new zoning code, which was planned a year or two ago to be fully remodeled. So for the newer commissioners, we're not starting from scratch. We do have essentially a full comprehensive template. Not saying it's going to be exactly the same, because we'll have new input and things may have changed, but we have a good model to work from. And also one other thing, the model that was developed by the BPAC, Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee, predecessor to the commission, took a lot of information from various cities, specifically in Wisconsin, as well as I think maybe a touch from Chicago and another city outside Wisconsin. So this is nothing new, and it's very, very much in line with the APBP, the Association for Pedestrian Bicyclist Professionals, kind of the leading guidance on this type of bike parking, or bike parking in general. Any questions or thoughts? All right, crickets are good, I guess.
All right, then the last staff update is referencing the capstone project applications for the UW-Madison and also for UW-SP. So staff is happy to announce that the application has been submitted for the capstone project application has been submitted to the University of Wisconsin-Madison this past Friday. Chairman Rourke submitted the application for that. And the entirety of the application is shown in the agenda packet if commissioners haven't had a chance to look at the application to gain a greater scope as far as what we would be asking students to achieve with this project. In hindsight, improving the connectivity and working in conjunction with an existing project plan set for the subject area in question. So hopefully we'll be able to hear back from UW-Madison sooner rather than later as far as if our application has been chosen, and then subsequent steps will be taking place after that as far as bringing students up here to take a look at the site and thereon and there forth. So like I said, we're happy to announce that the application has been submitted, and staff is in the beginning process of working on the application submittal for UW-SP, and the application window for UW-Stevens Point is around mid-September. There isn't a set date in hold right now, but about mid-September would be the latest as far as when we would want to submit the application by. So it looks like from right now, we do have a tentative project idea in place. So staff will for sure be in update with the commission as far as the scope of the project and as far as when the application will be submitted and then hopefully chosen as a capstone project. So the last thing I would be remiss to say, I want to thank if there are any members on this meeting right now, but I wanted to thank those who are going to be willing to take a little bit of their time and work as part of the steering committee for this project application for UW-Madison. I mean, I'm sure as Chairman Rourke can attest, there's a lot of work that's involved, and especially if the project will be chosen. So I wanted to thank all those who chose to participate in the steering committee. And like I said, hopefully we'll hear good news in the weeks ahead.
if I might comment too, in looking this application over, wow, talk about a thorough job of explaining everything and backing things up. And this is the first time that Stevens Point has applied for UW-Madison capstone project.
Yes, I think so. Unless, Adam, you looked in the record books, I think this might be the first.
Yeah, I was very impressed by it. It really is great. And getting more excited about that, improving that connection from downtown to the riverfront too, just by looking at how you presented it. So
Cool.
kudos.
Are there any other questions that commissioners have regarding the capstone applications?
And here.
Awesome. So that looks like that is the last of the staff updates that we have for the commission today.
So then, if there's nothing else, our meeting is officially adjourned at 4:14 p.m.
Videos of these meetings are available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.